Hello, my name is Jan Dash, and I'm an attorney in St. Kitts Nevis. I also have my own trust and corporate services company, and I'm here today to talk to you about how you can register a multiform foundation in Nevis. Now, Nevis has its own international financial services sectors, and you can establish Nevis business corporations, Nevis limited liability companies. We have a new law which allows you to establish Nevis limited partnerships, and I'm proud to say that I helped draft a portion of this law. Insurance companies, gaming companies, and what we're here today to talk about, foundations or multiform foundations, as it's known here in Nevis. Now, a foundation can be described as a fund which has been endowed by a subscriber, known as a founder in other jurisdictions, to be utilized to achieve a purpose, aim, or goal, or for the benefit of beneficiaries, persons. It is a self-owned entity, is considered to be an artificial person, can initiate and defend legal actions, and for administrative purposes is managed by a management board. The concept initiated during the Middle Ages in continental Europe, in the civil law countries of continental Europe, and were initially used for charitable purposes only. Now, a quick explanation. There are two types of laws in Europe and in the countries which they colonized throughout the world. There's civil law, which is based in the continent of Europe, and common law, which is in the English-speaking countries throughout the world, which initiates from England during the Middle Ages. Commercial foundations were first used in Liechtenstein in 1926, and then in Panama in 1995, and both of these are civil law countries. The concept spread to Nevis in 2004 when we initiated our Multiform Foundations Ordinance. Now you see on this list, you look at the bottom, it says Nevis and St. Kitts Nevis amongst the jurisdictions where foundations legislation now exists. Nevis is a part of St. Kitts Nevis and is under our Constitution is considered to be a separate entity. So there's federal law for St. Kitts Nevis, and then there is law for just Nevis. What we're here to talk about is the law for Nevis, because St. Kitts Nevis has its own federal legislation, which allows for foundations. Our law is known as the Multiform Foundations Ordinance because foundations may assume the form of a standard foundation, or for management purposes may assume the form of a company, corporation, partnership, or trust. As a practical matter, I tell all my clients, don't use the hybrid. It's an interesting quirk, and the reason that the man who drafted the law did it, he wanted to encourage people to take their existing entities and convert them into foundations, and he figured that since they would know how to manage a company or manage a corporation, but they didn't know how to manage a foundation, we could allow for this hybrid concept, but it really doesn't work. It leads to a lot of confusion, especially when it comes to opening bank accounts. So just stick with the standard foundation. That's probably the best way to go. The business and affairs are managed by a management board and assisted by a secretary. Now, the management board and the secretary must be two separate persons. So you can have a management board, which is one person. You only need is one person, and you can have a corporation where that same one person is the director and shareholder of the company, and that company could be secretary, because then it would be considered to be two separate persons. But there needs to be two separate persons. The management board may be supervised by a supervisory board, but this is not strictly necessary. I've only seen this in the case where the client has an accountant or an attorney, and they put their accountant or their attorney on the management board, and then they supervise this management board by being on the supervisory board. It generally plays the same role as a trust protector if you're making an analogy to trust law. There's no minimal capitalization requirements. There's no minimum dollar amount or monetary amount that you need to use to set up a foundation. As I said before, you can allow for domestic or uh, foreign entities to convert into a foundation, and we're going to discuss that in detail further on. And it could also choose the law of another jurisdiction to govern all or part of the foundation. It's different from trust law because in trust law, the beneficiaries have certain rights with regards to information about the trust. That doesn't exist in under the foundation concept and under the Multiform Foundations law. And unlike trusts, which have the rule against perpetuities, which seeks to limit the length of time for which a trust may exist, a multiform foundation may exist indefinitely. The following requirements. The following requirements basically all you need is a subscription when the subscriber, the person who establishes the foundation, transfers assets to the foundation. And it's again, there's no monetary amount. It can simply be the phrase "money's worth," which means that the subscriber is considered to have given money to the foundation in order to establish the foundation. The following requirement is limited to the name, the form, and as I said before, stick to the standard foundation, the name and address of the registered agent here in Nevis, and the consent form must be signed by the management board, the secretary, and if there's a supervisory board, the supervisory board also needs to sign. Now, if the consent form is signed outside of St. Kitts Nevis, it would need to be notarized and apostilled. Now, in foundations, there are three ways that the foundation may be registered. A new entity may be established. A domestic entity may be converted into a foundation. It's known as conversion. Or a foreign entity may first be continued into Nevis and then converted into a foundation. And we're going to use some flow charts to illustrate these concepts. Now, this basically is a new establishment. Basically, you've got the subscriber subscribing money's worth to the foundation. They appoint the management board and the secretary, and the bylaws are drafted, and the bylaws define if the foundation is to fulfill a purpose, basically an aim or goal, or for the benefit of beneficiaries, or perhaps for both. So this side illustrates how a foreign entity may become a Nevis entity on the way to becoming a multiform foundation. Now, if you want to look at the bottom, you see a foreign foundation basically skips any intermediate steps. It becomes a foundation directly, a multiform foundation directly. The first three need to become a Nevis entity, then can become a multiform foundation. So basically, a foreign corporation, a corporation in Jersey, let's say, becomes a Nevis business corporation. A company becomes a Nevis limited liability company, and a foreign limited partnership becomes a Nevis limited partnership. And in order for these entities to become Nevis entities, they need to provide a certificate of good standing, the document issued by the government or their current government where they're registered when it was initially registered, usually called a certificate of registration, certificate of formation, or the like, and the articles, which is the document which is sent to the government in order to establish the corporation. The trust, and that's also true for the foundation. The trust doesn't have to submit those documents. A foreign trust essentially becomes a qualified foreign trust. And what a qualified foreign trust is, under our law, a foreign trust may register in Nevis under the Nevis International Exempt Trust Ordinance and may adopt part of our laws. Generally, it's going to be the form selection clause because we don't allow for foreign judgments against our trusts or any trust registered under our trust law. And once it becomes a qualified foreign trust, then it can become an international trust. And that's a trust with a Nevis trustee. So the qualified foreign trust has a foreign trust. Then it becomes an international trust. So the existing trustee must then resign, appoint a new trustee. And then once it's an international trust, then it can become a multiform foundation. So this again illustrates the concept of a foreign entity becoming a Nevis entity. So you got your foreign entity over here on your left. Its management decides to re-domicile to Nevis and become a Nevis entity with the same management and owners, except for it being registered in a foreign jurisdiction. Now it's registered in Nevis. This illustrates the concept of conversion. So you've got a Nevis Business Corporation, a Nevis Limited Liability Company, a Nevis Limited Partnership, a Nevis Trust, which was a qualified foreign trust and then became an international trust, now becomes a multiform foundation. All Nevis trusts are tax exempt with regards to local taxes. Uh, they can elect to become tax resident and pay taxes at a maximum rate of 1%. As a practical matter, I've never really seen this. Generally, uh, all Nevis trusts, for the most part, are just tax exempt, and they don't pay any taxes locally. We don't recognize foreign judgments when it comes to foundations, and any legal action against the foundation must be brought in the High Court of St. Kitts Nevis. Um, the creditor, or sorry, the plaintiff, must post a bond of $50,000 before starting the legal action or commencing the legal action. And all proceedings are held in camera. That means they're not held in open court. They're held in the judge's chambers, with the exception of criminal matters. We also have a very tight fraudulent conveyance statute. What fraudulent conveyance is, it's a claim that a subscriber is in debt to somebody. They defrauded this person, this creditor, and then they subscribe these monies or these stolen proceeds into the foundation. So the creditor, the creditor is now going to sue the foundation because the foundation is the entity which owns these assets, not the debtor. So any amounts subscribed to the foundation essentially needs to be brought between 6 months to 1 year. The benefits of a multiform foundation. It's a self-owned entity. That means that there are no interest holders or stakeholders. The foundation is the proper entity to bring a legal action or defend a legal action. So if the persons on the management board, they're not going to be the ones who are going to be sued. The entity that's going to be sued, or the person that's going to be sued, the artificial person that's going to be sued, is the multiform foundation. There's no local taxation. It's tax exempt here in Nevis. There's also no recognition of foreign judgment. So again, going back to the issue with regards to any legal action against the foundation, the legal action needs to be brought against the foundation, and it needs to be brought here in Nevis. You can't take a judgment that you've gotten someplace else and essentially try to enforce it here in Nevis. That won't work. It has to be, the entire matter has to be retried from start to finish against the foundation, not against the person who is on the management board or who's claimed to be involved in the foundation, against the foundation itself. Foreign or domestic entities can convert to multiform foundations. So if you've got a Jersey company, you've got a Panamanian corporation, you've got a Guernsey limited partnership. I don't know if they have limited partnership laws in Guernsey, but let's assume that they do. It can convert first to a domestic entity, and then once it becomes a domestic entity, then it can convert to a multiform foundation. And with regards to trust, there is an extra step because it needs to be a foreign trust, then a qualified foreign trust, which is a trust that chooses to be governed by part of Nevis's laws, and then it can become an international trust. And once it's an international trust, then it can convert to a multiform foundation. And then there's a short limitations period when it comes to fraudulent conveyance. And what fraudulent conveyance is a claim that a creditor was defrauded. The person who defrauded this creditor, this debtor, is a subscriber or somehow involved with the foundation. So the legal action, again, must be brought in Nevis. You can't you can't use a foreign judgment. Sure, you got to retry the case, and it needs to be brought between 6 months to 1 year after this action happened. So again, my name is Jan Dash. I'm an attorney here in Nevis. I've been an attorney here in Nevis for a number of years. I've done plenty of foundations, and if you need to establish a foundation, please feel free to contact me. My contact information is on screen. You can go to my website and you can contact me. It's been my pleasure to speak to you, and I hope to hear from you soon. Thank you.